On February 24, 2022, the world watched in shock as Russian forces launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This marked a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict between the two nations, which had been simmering since the annexation of Crimea in 2014. The invasion was not just a regional issue but a global one, drawing immediate reactions from countries around the world. This unprovoked act of aggression shattered decades of relative peace in Europe. The continent, which had enjoyed a period of stability and growth, was suddenly thrust into uncertainty and fear. The images of peaceful cities and landscapes before the invasion serve as a stark contrast to the devastation that followed. Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed the invasion was a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. He argued that Ukraine posed a threat to Russia's security, and that the operation was necessary to protect Russian-speaking populations in Ukraine. However, these justifications were met with widespread skepticism and condemnation. However, these claims were widely condemned as baseless pretexts for an illegal war of aggression. International leaders and organizations quickly denounced the invasion, calling it a blatant violation of international law and an assault on Ukraine's sovereignty. Protests erupted around the world, with people taking to the streets to show their support for Ukraine and demand an end to the violence. The international community swiftly condemned the invasion, imposing severe sanctions on Russia. These sanctions targeted key sectors of the Russian economy, including finance, energy and defense, in an effort to pressure the Russian government to withdraw its forces. The sanctions also aimed to isolate Russia diplomatically, cutting it off from international forums and partnerships. The invasion sent shockwaves across the globe. News of the conflict dominated headlines, and people everywhere watched anxiously as the situation unfolded. The war not only affected those directly involved, but also had far-reaching implications for global stability and security. It triggered the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Millions of people were forced to flee their homes seeking safety in neighboring countries. The sudden influx of refugees put immense pressure on these countries, which had to quickly mobilize resources to provide shelter, food, and medical care. Millions of Ukrainians fled their homes, seeking safety in neighboring countries. Poland, Romania, and other neighboring nations opened their borders to the refugees, offering them a temporary haven from the conflict. The international community also stepped in, providing humanitarian aid and support to help manage the crisis. The conflict also had a profound impact on global energy markets, food security, and international relations. The disruption of supply chains led to shortages and rising prices for essential goods, affecting economies worldwide. Diplomatic efforts intensified as world leaders sought to find a resolution to the conflict and mitigate its broader impacts. 3 years on, the war continues to rage, with no end in sight. The conflict has caused widespread destruction and loss of life, leaving many Ukrainian cities in ruins. Despite numerous attempts at ceasefires and peace talks, the fighting persists, and the humanitarian crisis deepens. The conflict has its roots in the 2014 annexation of Crimea by Russia. This event marked a significant turning point in relations between Russia and Ukraine, leading to years of tension and sporadic violence. The annexation was widely condemned by the international community, which refused to recognize Crimea as part of Russia. This event, followed by Russia's support for separatists in eastern Ukraine, marked the beginning of a simmering conflict. The regions of Donetsk and Luhansk became hotspots of violence, with separatist fighters clashing with Ukrainian forces. The situation remained volatile, with occasional flare-ups of intense fighting. The 2022 invasion represented a dramatic escalation of this conflict, transforming it into a full-blown war. The scale and intensity of the fighting increased dramatically, leading to significant casualties and widespread destruction. The international community continues to grapple with the consequences of this ongoing war, as efforts to achieve a lasting peace remain elusive. Over the past 3 years, the front lines in Ukraine have shifted considerably. The conflict, which began in earnest in 2022, has seen numerous phases of intense fighting, brief ceasefires, and strategic maneuvers by both sides. The landscape of the war has been marked by rapid advances and sudden retreats, with neither side able to secure a decisive victory. Russia initially made rapid gains, capturing large swaths of territory in the south and east. Their strategy involved a combination of overwhelming force and swift, coordinated attacks designed to destabilize Ukrainian defenses. The initial phase of the invasion saw Russian forces pushing deep into Ukrainian territory, capturing key cities and strategic locations. However, Ukrainian forces, bolstered by Western military aid, mounted a fierce resistance. The influx of advanced weaponry, intelligence support, and training from NATO countries significantly enhanced Ukraine's defensive capabilities. Ukrainian soldiers, motivated by a strong sense of national pride and determination, managed to halt the Russian advance in several critical areas. They succeeded in slowing the Russian advance and even recapturing some lost territory. The counteroffensives launched by Ukraine were meticulously planned and executed, targeting weak points in the Russian lines. Towns and villages that had been under occupation were liberated, and the Ukrainian flag was once again raised over these areas, symbolizing hope and resilience. As of February 2025, Russia controls approximately 19% of Ukraine's territory. This includes regions that are strategically important for both military and economic reasons. The territorial control map highlights the areas under Russian occupation, showing a complex and fragmented front line that stretches across the eastern and southern parts of Ukraine. This includes the Crimean Peninsula, annexed in 2014, and significant portions of the eastern Donbas region. The annexation of Crimea has been a point of contention and a major factor in the ongoing conflict. The Donbas region, with its industrial significance and pro-Russian sentiment, has been a focal point of intense fighting and political maneuvering. While Russia has made incremental gains in recent months, its progress has slowed considerably. The initial momentum of the invasion has been blunted by logistical challenges, fierce Ukrainian resistance, and the harsh realities of sustained warfare. The Russian military has had to adapt its strategies, focusing on smaller, more achievable objectives rather than large-scale offensives. The conflict has settled into a war of attrition, with both sides heavily fortified along a static front line. Trenches, bunkers, and defensive positions now define the landscape, reminiscent of the trench warfare of World War I. This static nature of the front line has led to a grueling and prolonged conflict, with both sides digging in and preparing for a long-term struggle. Key cities like Kyiv, Lviv, Dnipro, and Odessa remain under Ukrainian control, although some have faced relentless bombardment. These cities are not only important for their strategic value, but also for their cultural and historical significance. The resilience of these urban centers has become a symbol of Ukrainian defiance and determination in the face of aggression. Mariupol, once a thriving port city, stands as a stark reminder of the war's brutality, largely destroyed after months of siege. The siege of Mariupol was one of the most devastating episodes of the conflict, resulting in significant civilian casualties and widespread destruction. The city's ruins are a testament to the human cost of the war and the resilience of those who survived. The battle for control continues, with each side vying for strategic advantage. The conflict shows no signs of abating, as both Ukrainian and Russian forces continue to engage in fierce battles for key positions. The future remains uncertain, with the potential for further escalation or a protracted stalemate. The world watches closely, hoping for a resolution to this devastating conflict. The conflict in Ukraine has been characterized by the use of a wide array of military technologies, both old and new. This blend of past and present has created a unique battlefield where traditional and modern tactics collide. Tanks, artillery, and infantry have played a significant role, reminiscent of 20th century warfare. These conventional forces have been the backbone of many ground operations, providing the brute force necessary to hold and take territory. However, the conflict has also showcased the growing importance of drones, cyber warfare, and sophisticated electronic warfare systems. These technologies have introduced a new dimension to the battlefield, allowing for precision strikes, real-time intelligence, and disruption of enemy communications. Russia has deployed a vast arsenal of weaponry, including thermobaric bombs, hypersonic missiles, and cluster munitions, drawing international condemnation for their indiscriminate nature. These weapons have caused widespread devastation and raised serious humanitarian concerns. Ukraine, outgunned and outmanned, has relied heavily on Western-supplied weapons, including Javelin anti-tank missiles, HIMARS rocket systems, and Bayraktar TB2 drones. These advanced systems have been crucial in leveling the playing field, allowing Ukrainian forces to mount effective counterattacks and defend key positions. Both sides have suffered significant military losses. The toll on equipment and personnel has been immense, with countless vehicles destroyed and many soldiers forced to retreat under heavy fire. Estimates suggest hundreds of thousands of soldiers have been killed or wounded on both sides, with tens of thousands more missing in action. The human cost of this conflict is staggering, with families torn apart and communities left in mourning. The conflict has also resulted in the destruction of billions of dollars worth of military equipment. Tanks, aircraft, and other vehicles lie in ruins, a testament to the ferocity of the fighting. The financial burden of replacing this equipment will be felt for years to come, adding another layer of complexity to the post-war recovery efforts. Section 4. The human toll, casualties, and displacement. The war in Ukraine has had a devastating impact on the civilian population. The United Nations estimates that over 12,000 civilians have been killed, with the true number likely much higher. Millions have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in safer parts of Ukraine or fleeing to neighboring countries. The war has created a humanitarian crisis of immense proportions. Hospitals, schools, and residential areas have been targeted, resulting in widespread civilian casualties. The destruction of infrastructure has left millions without access to basic necessities such as water, electricity, and healthcare. The psychological toll of the conflict is immeasurable. Trauma, grief, and displacement have left an indelible mark on the Ukrainian psyche. The war's impact on children, many of whom have witnessed unimaginable horrors, is particularly concerning. Section 5. Economic fallout. The cost of conflict. The war in Ukraine has had a profound impact on the global economy. Sanctions imposed on Russia have disrupted global supply chains, leading to increased energy prices and inflation. Russia, a major exporter of oil and gas, has seen its economy contract, while Ukraine's economy has been devastated by the conflict. The war has also disrupted global food security. Ukraine, a major exporter of wheat and other grains, has seen its agricultural production plummet. This has contributed to rising food prices and shortages, particularly in developing countries. The economic consequences of the war are likely to be felt for years to come. Rebuilding Ukraine's shattered infrastructure will require a massive international effort. The long-term impact on global trade and investment remains uncertain.